everyone present over here. Today, I welcome you all to the big debate competition. The topic of the debate is Science Leaves No Room for Free Will. First of all, I am feeling very proud to brief you all about our school. Rukmini Devi Public School is a Premier League institution situated in Northwest Delhi with the state-of-art infrastructure and facilities of the international standard, and also provides a stimulating, congenial environment. The school has also been affiliated by CBSE and CBSEI curriculum. As you all know why we have gathered over here, so without wasting any more time, now let me introduce you about the format or call the sum total of the rules and regulations regarding the debate. Each debater will make an opening presentation and forward the arguments in favor of their opinion. These speeches are constructive in nature and last only for 5 minutes by both the sides negative and the affirmative. The affirmative speaker will always initiate the speeches. Then, a 3-minute question segment will follow. After this, each debater will deliver a speech addressing the key claims of their opponents. If there is any weakness in the speeches, it will be resolved. Common areas of arguments are to be discovered and resolved. This argument will be rebuttal in nature. Such speeches will be followed by a 4-minute question segment. After this, there will be a consolidation speeches and will last for 3 minutes each. Core elements must be maintained and the focus will be laid upon the areas where the advantages are to be achieved. New arguments are to be discouraged. Lastly, the debaters will give a rational speech, which is a summation of central arguments that prove their side and reasons they have proven them in this debate. No new arguments are to be offered in rational speeches. Please note that both the times will receive a 5-minute time period for the preparation. So now let's start with the debate. In group 1, we have Anushka, we have Nandini and Khushi from affirmation side and Arushi and Ishika from the negation side. The affirmation speakers, please initiate the speech.
Today we stand in the affirmation of the topic resolved, science leaves no room for free will. I'll start off by introducing the topic, but before presenting any further views about it, I shall brief you what free will is. So free will is basically the ability to choose between different courses of action without the constraint of fate. Our commonsensical view holds that everything we do in life is a choice and we are free to choose between the options we think are available to us. But scientists see a major problem with this conventional wisdom of ours about free will and claim that it's nothing more than just an illusion. Our first contention states that the two broad branches of science, physics and biology, aren't compatible with free will. All our actions are the product of the activities in our brain. We feel ourselves usually to be in control of these actions, which feeling is itself the product of the brain, whose machinery has been designed on the basis of functional utility by natural selection. The sense of free will is an invention of the brain. Like so much of what the brain does, that feeling is a mental model, a plausible account of how we act. To choose a spouse, a job, or even to choose to rob a bank is the peak of a causal chain that runs back to the origin of life and down to the nature of atoms, molecules, and genes. Therefore, science and biology and physics are incompatible with free will. The next contention I'd like to put forward is the societal influences that determine our character. Many people think that they are the creators and originators of their own will because they are unaware of most of the genetic and psychological factors that influence them. But it's not true. Our behavioral patterns depend upon two major factors. Firstly, our genes, and secondly, the environment in which we are born. Both these factors play a major role in carving out our personality and henceforth the decisions we make. For instance, we did not pick our place and time of birth, we didn't choose our parents, or we even didn't choose our gender and our life experiences. We had no control over these experiences of life and therefore we have no free will. And now our brain is making the choices on the basis of what has been hammered into it over a lifetime. So these choices are a result of both these factors that are genes and environment.
The next contention I would like to put forward is Benjamin Libet's experiment. Benjamin Libet is a neuropsychologist in the University of California. He made the most thought-provoking and the controversial experiment in the neuroscience. He asked the experimental subject to perform simple activities like flicking their wrist or finger whenever they wanted to. and they could see a moving spot of light on a special clock whenever they made their movement. Libet just wanted to determine that when the participant became consciously aware for deciding to act prior to the movement they made, using their cerebral activities using scalp electrodes. Libet's recording revealed that the report of the conscious decision to act occurred about 350 milliseconds after the movement. Therefore, it is clear that our actions are predetermined. The next experiment I would like to put forward is John Dylan Hein's experiment. He made one of the similar experiment which had a similar effect to that of the Libet. After putting participants in an MRI scanner, he told them to press a button with either their right index finger or with their left index finger. But they have to remember the letter that would be occurring on the screen whenever they made the decision. The results were shocking. Heinz data showed that the BP occurred one entire second prior to the conscious awareness. He argued that the delay was due to the operation of a network of high-level control areas that were preparing for an upcoming decision. And the next contention I would like to put forward is that determinism is not fatalism. A big problem is that people confuse between determinism and fatalism. Determinism is a belief that our choices are an unbreakable chain of causes and effects, whereas on the other hand, fatalism is the belief that our choices really doesn't matter. Whatever is destined to happen will happen. The fact that our choices depend on prior causes doesn't mean that they will not matter. For instance, if people had decided not to write books, then the books wouldn't have been written by themselves. The writer's choice to write it was unquestionably the primary cause of its coming into being. Therefore, by presenting these contentions, we claim that free will is nothing more than just an illusion, which is itself a pretended notion of a brain.
Now, the negation side, please begin your constructive speeches.
Today we stand the negation of the topic, result. Science leaves no room for free will. At the outset, it is necessary to get a clear understanding of what free will is. So free will is the ability or freedom to choose between two different courses of action. The word freedom has many other uses, such as political freedom or social freedom. But the kind of freedom we are talking about could be practiced even if a person lay encased in chains. And coming forward to science. Science is intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of structure and behavior of the physical or natural world through observation and experiments. Many scientists claim that free will is just an illusion and have completely denied its existence. But today, through our contentions, we would like to prove why free will is existing and it is influenced by things beyond science.
Our contention 1 is the objection from the law of causality. Now, there are some immediate objections to the idea of free will. To begin with, it seems to violate the law of causality. Every effect must have a cause and the cause produces the same effect. The reply here is fairly simple. Free will is the ability to choose between different possible courses of action and it cannot always be an effect. To face a final preliminary issue, what is the relationship between causality and free will? To put forward my question more clearly, in some sense, causality is necessary for free will. The essential part of free will is the idea that I cause my actions. The answer is that we must distinguish between actions and choices. Actions are effects of a cause known as free will. Free will causes actions by making choices, but choices are not effects.
Further, our contention 2 will explain the ideas of karma and what it explains. Karma is Sanskrit word used for actions, and the urgent believers of karma must have heard about the karmic laws, which we are going to state now. Some of them which immediately proves the existence of free will. So first, the great law of karma states, as you sow, so shall you reap. In other words, whatever we put in the universe is what gets back to us. This is simple enough to understand that if actions of a person are not freely willed, then why would he have to face the consequences of his vices? The second law, the law of creation, states that life doesn't just happen to you, it requires your participation, according to which the life and events don't just happen to us under the influence of our outer environment. It proceeds as we participate and get molded to our own will. Further, the law of responsibility states, whenever there is something wrong in my life, there is something wrong in me, which is a universal truth. And if scientists completely deny the existence of free will, then why would a person be responsible for his deeds? And by these karmic laws, it is pretty clear that the theory of karma completely supports the existence of free will.
We'd like to put forward our contention 3, which is placebo and nocebo effect. A placebo is an inert substance of belief that produces real biological effects in humans.
If you think something works, then it probably will. This is how a placebo breaks. This is how some doctors aid patients in recovery. They prescribe them fake medicines and make them believe that this is going to make them better. And sure enough, the real biological effects are seen in the patients and they get cured. A nocebo effect is just as mind-altering as the placebo effect. A nocebo is an adverse outcome that a person can experience by just believing that it will happen. Think about the number of individuals who think that they are going to die or have an adverse medical condition even if there is nothing wrong with them. Some people can psych themselves out to believe in something is wrong or detrimental.
Further contention before we explain how we are not slaves to our genetics. Genetic determinism undoubtedly have an impact on our life choices and abilities, but the human brain is subjected to enormous amount of remodeling over time, with enormous changes to neural pathways. Our neurons establish fixed pathways that determine much of the personality and capabilities of a person. But this is not immutable. Neuroplasticity allows the brain of an individual to rewire itself, to change with need. In fact, there have been people who have had half of their brains removed and have gone to live a normal life as their brain have simply rebuilt themselves. While there may be a genetic element to whom we are, at last, we control our own destiny. And that is what makes a man different from a plant, that he has free will.
A contention 5 is free will and science are compatible. Compatibilism is the belief that free will and determinism are compatible ideas and that it is possible to believe in both without being logically inconsistent. People seem to be what philosophers call incompatibilists, those who believe free will is not compatible with determinism. If everything that happens in the universe is determined by what happened before, it can seem only logical to conclude that you can't be morally responsible for what you do, not even for the crime you commit. But there is also a school of philosophers who consider free will compatible with definition of determinism. In the words of Arthur Schopenhauer, man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. Free will hasn't been disproved scientifically or philosophically. The more that researchers investigate free will, the more good reasons are there to believe in it.
Here we end with our constructive speeches. The participants may now start with the question segment. Affirmative speakers, please ask your questions.
Well, you stated that we are not slaves of our genes. But if you know that there is an effect called the framing effect, according to which the environmental structure around us and our genes both influence the choices we make right now. But you said that our genes play no role in the decisions we make. So what say do we have in it?
My counterpart has stated that genes have a role in determining who we are. The part of the brain you're talking about helps in making decisions. But free will is the ability to choose between two possible courses. So that part helps in decision making, not in choosing.
And also the human brain is subject to enormous amount of remodeling over time with need. So that's where we can alter our own choices.
Any more questions of affirmative speakers?
No, thank you.
Negation speakers, please start with your
I
questions.
would like to ask that if you prove that free will does not exist, then how can a court punish a person for a crime he commits? As you just said, the crime he committed was not for his own free will. The science made it do that and was predetermined.
Yes, we do believe that the court punishes people for the actions they perform. And that's because the actions are performed by the person itself. Though the factors that influence the person in performing that action were defined by science, but that doesn't mean that the person cannot be stated responsible for what he does. The factors were, for example, if a person commits a murder, there may have been some factors in his past that have made him disturbed his neurological pathways and made him perform that activity. It's not his free will that he has committed a crime, but the factors which influenced his neurological pathways and then he performed them.
Any other questions?
No.
A 2-minute preparation time is granted to the speakers. The time is over. The debaters are now requested to start with their rebuttal speeches. Affirmative speakers, please initiate.
You have stated that free will coexists with science, and also stated the strong arguments like the placebo and nocebo effects, the law of karma, which are strong evidences against in favor of free will.
You have stated in your debate. You have stated in your debate the law of causality. Also, the law of causality states that every cause must have an effect. You have also stated the law of karma that states that as you sow, so shall you reap. As you sow, that how do you the action that you perform, so shall you reap. The thing that will be its effect. So, and if the law of causality is stated wrong, then it's also directed that an effect didn't have any cause. It's practically not possible. Hence, the contention you stated was wrong. Also, you have already stated the law of causality, which is irrelevant to the context of free will. And the nature of an action is caused and determined by the nature of the entities that act. A thing cannot act in contradiction to its nature. Hence, the law of karma, that you stated and the law of causality you stated, both were interlinked.
You also mentioned about the placebo and nocebo effects. Well, you stated them to be in favor of free will, but that's not true. They have a science behind them. There are two parts of our brain, that are the conscious part and the unconscious part. I'll explain this by giving an example. For example, if a person feels that he's having fever and starts to act weak, then he thinks from his conscious part of the brain. But in the unconscious part, the temperature regulating organ, that is the hypothalamus, it will trigger an activity that will surely increase your temperature. Then the unconscious and conscious part will link together with each other. And this will cause an increase in temperature, which you call as nocebo effect, which states that if you think negative, then that negative thing will happen. The vice versa is true for the placebo effect. Therefore, it's not related to free will, but it has a science behind it.
Negation speakers, please initiate.
If worthy opponents believe that physics and biology are incompatible with free will, then this is where you're wrong. Our actions cannot break the laws of physics, but it can be influenced by things just beyond gravity, friction, or electromagnetic charges. Physics may be the most fundamental of sciences, but as you move to the ladder of chemistry, then biophysiology, psychology, onto sociology and economics, at each level, new kinds of causes enter the picture. And free will is just another kind of cause. The causal process by which a person decides whether to marry is simply different from the causes that causes the ball to roll downhill, or ice to melt in the sun, or stock price to rise and fall. No number of facts about a carbon atom can explain life. And these causes operate at different levels of organization. Even if you could write a book on civil war, purely in terms of muscle movement or neuron firing, then that book would completely miss the point of the war. Free will cannot violate the laws of physics or even neuroscience, but it invokes causes that go beyond science and its laws. We also respect your opinion when you say that the vital physiological processes of our body are not under conscious control, but we don't really agree. I would like to explain it with the help of an example. The within monks. By judging their ability to meditate for hours and to abstain food for days, you have believed that they have a control over their minds and body. But the most amazing thing about them was exhibited in an experiment. The Tibetan monks were clothed in wet, cold sheets and were placed in a 4.5 degrees Celsius room. In such conditions, the average person would shortly suffer hypothermia. But through deep concentration and meditation, these monks were able to generate body heat. And within some minutes, the researchers noticed steam rising from the sheet. And within an hour, the sheet was completely dry. This was a result of their meditation, and this was not linked with science in any case.
Another notable example that I'd like to state is the yogis that originate from India, who have been long reputed for the remarkable control and they demonstrate over their bodies. The most fascinating claim is their ability to stop their heartbeats at will. Yogi Satyamurthy is a slender man of about 60 years of age. He confined himself to an underground pit uh, to which he labeled as a state of deep meditation. ECG monitor was attached to attached to during the meditation, and various tests were performed before and afterwards. After 29 hours, surprisingly, the ECG flatlined, and the flatline persisted for hours, and until the normal activity retained when the pit was scheduled to be reopened. Those in support of science have always used Libet's experiment to strengthen the foundation of their arguments. But Libet's method for deciding whether free will exists or not is flawed for the following reasons. First, any decisions participants make about these simple actions are arbitrary. In fact, participants are instructed to be spontaneous rather than think about what to do. The instructions participants receive place conscious reasoning about what to do out of bounds. The experimental setting is very different from a situation in which we are carefully weighing the pros and cons of the situation. The decision, for example, whether to change careers. Moreover, it is very likely that many processes in our body are rather a smeared out event, which can't possibly occur instantaneously. It would be like asking when a baby starts talking. There is no clear-cut line dividing between baby's silence and his speech. It is a spectrum, a process, a continuum of consciousness, rather than a binary switch between unaware to aware. A methodological flaw in these experiments always involve a test fully aware of the choice they are going to make. This is problematic because it provides an oversimplified picture of the real decision-making processes in the brain. This is negative because it again reduces complex brain processes to a point where they are no longer wholly relevant to the examination of a broad topic such as free will.
Rebuter speeches are over now. The participants may now start with the question segment. Affirmation side, please ask your questions.
You have stated that causality is irrelevant in the context of free will. But the law of karma is closely linked to it, as you said that law of karma states that as you sow, so shall you reap. So what answer do you have for this?
It might signal the law of causality is nothing different than the law of karma, but actually they are different. First, whereas the causal law is concerned with the results regardless of whom it affects, the law of karma is concerned with the effects of the action, which affects the doer of the action. That's the basic difference between these two.
Any other questions, affirmation side?
No.
Negation, please ask your questions.
We have refuted our topic of placebo and nocebo effects through an example of a brain organ called the hypothalamus. But the method for controlling a simple action like body temperature is far more different from complex processes like the heartbeat and blood pressure. How do you justify that?
You may have interpreted my point incorrect because hypothalamus is the part of an example that I gave that was temperature regulation. Hypothalamus is not the organ that will maintain every simple to complex activities in our body. It was just an example, but we do have more examples for the placebo and nocebo effects. I did mention that the placebo and nocebo effects are not related to free will, but they have a science behind them. And the hypothalamus is not the only organ that supports it. Hypothalamus is only related to temperature regulation, whereas in other contexts, in other examples, we have more organs to do that.
We'd like to demand 2 minutes for consolidation.
Of course.
Somebody should do it. My pen will work. Because you don't have any pen will work. Maybe attendance registered and my 6 periods of checking remains incomplete. That is my plight. It against your thanks. Thanks for me. You never applied. still ends. आपने हमें समझा.
Now the debaters may start with their consolidation speeches. Affirmation sides, please begin.
Now, we would like to consolidate that science leaves no room for free will. If we have free will, then alternative decisions must be open to us in a deep way upon which we will try to shed some light now. Sometimes you would have made a different decision if the situation would have been different. For example, if you would have been in a better mood, you must have given rupee 400 to a beggar instead of just rupee 200. What is needed is plurality of options, given everything as it actually was at that time, including your mood, all your thoughts and feelings, your brain, your environment, and indeed the entire universe and the history. Having been able to have made a different decision if things had been a bit different is a different thing. Having been able to have made a different decision in the absence of any prior thing is different in another case.
Also, as it is being mentioned frequently that the law of causality states that every cause must have an effect, I'd like to put some light on it by giving an example. For example, if a girl who has a tragic past and she's not able to touch a blonde-haired dog, and on her 16th birthday, if her father brings her two puppies, one is a blonde-haired one and the second one is a black-haired, what do you think, which one would she choose? The choice is obvious. She would choose a black-haired dog regardless of the blonde-haired one, because the factors that influenced her mind earlier in her past are now influencing the decisions she makes. So she will not be able to touch that dog and will choose the black-haired one. So that means that the environment in which we stay, in which we dwell, plays a very important role in the decisions we make. Though we have a plurality of choices, but our genes, along with a major role of our environment, play this role.
If you think carefully about any decision you have made in the past, you will recognize that all of them were ultimately based on similar genetic or social inputs to which you had been exposed. And you will also discover that you had no control over these inputs, which means that you had no free will in taking these decisions. For instance, you had no choice in where, to whom, and in what period of time you were born. You also had no choice in the kind of neighbors and the friends you will meet in the future. You therefore had no choice in how you made your decisions during that time. Hence, we can say that science leaves no room for free will.
Negation, please start.
Now, bringing the debate to central idea, I would like to consolidate that free will is the inner deciding process in human being. The evolution of free will began when living beings began to make choices. The difference between a plant and an animal illustrates an important audience time. The plants don't change their location or don't need brain to help them decide where to go, but animals do.
According to us, free will is just an advanced form of simple process of controlling oneself called agency. Living things everywhere face two problems: survival and reproduction. All species have to either solve these problems or go extinct. Humankind has an unusual strategy for this. We communicate, develop complex social systems, engage in trade, accumulate knowledge, and create giant social institutions like governments, universities, hospitals, and corporations. These help us survive and reproduce in increasingly safe and comfortable ways. If culture is so successful, why don't other animals use it? Because they can't. They lack the psychological innate capabilities it requires.